What's up, everybody? Go Burns, welcoming you to another edition of my vlog series. Actually, this is the first episode, technically, because the Vlogs Begins video was the pilot, or the intro to my vlog series. And I decided to change the name of my secondary channel from Go Burns 2.0, which was specifically for the Rockstar Editor videos, which I'm going to continue to do. In fact, I'm going to be part of the hashtag CEO Rockstar Editor contest once I have an idea for a video. Fortunately, I have like till July 18th to come up with an idea, put it together, and post it up on this channel. But that's where you will find my entry for hashtag CEO for the Rockstar Editor contest. And once that pops up, I expect every one of you to like it, to share it, so that I can win the chair and the trophy and the jacket. But, you know, even if I don't win, it's no big deal. I love making content anyways, win or lose. So this is Father's Day weekend in the States. And I decided to talk about the important men in my life besides the truck drivers that I go see on Friday nights. Hey, you know, it's hard making a living as a YouTuber. You got to make some side action. Do whatever it takes to put some bucks in your pocket. Okay, so anyways, so traditionally, I think it floats a little bit regarding Father's Day weekend. We have a Mother's Day weekend, and then of course a month or so later we have a Father's Day weekend, and that's to recognize the important fathers in our lives, whether it's a dad or a grandfather or even a fatherly figure. And you could say that the whole notion of these holidays is kind of contrived because, like Hallmark and like other, places that, make money off of Father's Day, like restaurants, etc. They benefit from Father's Day or Mother's Day weekends, just like Valentine's. The list goes on and on. But I was lucky enough to have two very important fatherly figures in my life. And, you don't have to be your flesh and blood dad in order for him to be a fatherly figure to you. Because I realize a lot of people out there don't know their dad, or their dad wasn't involved in their lives, or something happened to their dad. It sucks. But there's always somebody that usually steps up or tries to step up in order to be a fatherly figure. Sometimes it's single moms that have no choice but to be the mom and the dad. So I'm sure there's a few of you watching this vlog that probably can relate to that. But anyways, my story. Okay, so my two fatherly figures are obviously my dad, who's still very much involved in my life. And, over the past few months, he's been battling cancer. In fact, we nearly lost him in October. He had tumors in his bladder, and he had that removed. But since then, he's gotten used to using a colostomy bag, or was it the other bag? The bag that you pee in, obviously. But anyways, that's not really important. The point is he's still with us, but he's also been battling spinal cancer a little bit. But the chemo treatments have been going really well, and he's just about over that. So I'm glad that I still have my dad around. And the other very important figure in my life is my grandfather, Papaw, who was my mom's dad. Now, unfortunately, my mom passed away a long time ago. So on Mother's Day, I feel the same way that a lot of you feel on Father's Day that don't exactly have a dad in your life. So I can relate to you one way or the other. But the same thing goes. I've had, women like aunts and some others who have risen up to try and fill that motherly role that was vacated when my mom passed away. And I've had a couple of stepmoms since. They weren't like evil stepmoms in what Cinderella, or was it Cinderella? I get those confused. But the point is, I've had women in my life that have tried to fill that surrogate mother role. But back to fathers. My grandfather, adopted my mom and eventually her brother a few years later. Now, I don't know if they were blood related, but my grandfather and granny, who also passed away a few years ago, at the time they couldn't have children, and the only way they could have children was to adopt. So they eventually adopted a daughter, my mom, and so that's a mystery right there, because I have no idea who my mom's biological parents are. But that's not really what's important. What matters is my papaw and granny raised her and took care of her, And then eventually, she got married, and the first marriage didn't go so well from what I was told. He wasn't a really nice guy. They got divorced. And then eventually she met my dad in the late 70s, and they got married in 1980. And a few months later, I popped out for some reason. But unfortunately, like about 2 years later, my mom passed away. So my dad had to take on a very large role, trying to help take care of me while at the same time dealing with the loss that he had, losing his wife. And the same thing for my grandfather, my papaw and granny. They lost a daughter. And so I became very close with my dad, and I became very close with my papaw, because they had to kind of try in their own way to fill that void. And my grandfather's story is very interesting, just like my dad's is. My papaw, was born an orphan as well, more or less. And, he lived on the streets basically during the Great Depression. In fact, he'd tell me stories about how a loaf of bread would cost 4 cents, and he would have 3 cents in his pocket that he just begged for and just found here and there. And he would look everywhere trying to find a fourth penny just so he could go buy a loaf of bread. But he rose up from that. Eventually, he did get adopted, and he ended up serving in the Army Air Corps as a second lieutenant, flyboy in World War II. And then later on, he went off to college, and he started his own small business, and it became rather successful. And, he is definitely the one I look up to for, achieving that American dream of rags to riches, because he definitely did it. And if it wasn't for him, I wouldn't have the life that I have right now, because, he's taken care of me over the years. So I do owe my grandfather a great debt, which I've tried to pass on to other people in my life. I've tried to help friends, and I've tried to help family in need from time to time. But my dad also was in a similar situation. He was born in the projects to a Catholic family, and he has like a dozen brothers and sisters. I kid you not. I have several aunts and uncles and a whole ton of cousins. The Burns family is kind of like rabbits. But, he grew up poor as well, and, it wasn't always easy, strict Catholic upbringing. And, he eventually graduated from high school, graduated from college, got a couple degrees. He was a chemist for a few years, but then, after my mom died, he decided to start his own small business, a nursery landscaping business, which, he had some luck with. He made enough money just to barely pay the bills and keep, your head above water. Just like any other small business, it's a struggle. It's hard to, make a small business a success. And, despite my father and my papaw's flaws, because you know what, everybody has flaws. A lot of times when we think of a dad, we think of an iconic 1950s father knows best dad. That's not the case. Fathers and grandfathers are human beings just like the rest of us. They have flaws. They make mistakes. They're people too. And, I've made my own share of mistakes and flaws in my life, so that's nothing new. But at the same time, I'll never question the heart that my papaw and my dad have had. They have done the absolutely best they both could do to raise me to be the man I am. Now, am I perfect? Obviously not. I, have my own issues, as I said, just like we all do. But I'm very fortunate, despite some of the bad things that have happened in my life, to have both my dad and my papaw in my life. And I hope that you also have somebody in your life who has, a fatherly influence on you, whether it's your dad or a grandfather or an uncle, for example, maybe an older brother, or perhaps even a teacher, a football coach, maybe some other sports coach. Maybe even, like I said, a lot of people out there, unfortunately, don't have a father, so they look to their mom to kind of be the father and the mother. So that's what I want to dedicate this vlog to all of you out there who, have tried to be the best father you could be, even if you're not a guy. You've tried to be there for your kid, to be the mom and the dad in some regards. But, yeah, a lot of times it seems like dads and grandfathers kind of get neglected. But they're just as important to the raising of a child as the mother is. The mother is very important. The grandma is very important. But so are dads and grandfathers. And I'm not trying to sex it. Because like I said, a lot of times, single moms unfortunately have to rise up to be a fatherly role as well. And if that's not the case, then one thing you could look at is important historical people that you look up to, whether it's like a somebody who made a difference, a scientist who created something that made the world a better place, or a writer, a poet, an artist, an activist, somebody like that, like Gandhi, for example, or Martin Luther King Jr., or even like I don't know, some sort of a figure throughout history, whether it's religious or mythical or whatever, somebody that had really positive, really good attributes that you admired and looked up. Maybe even like a cartoon, for example. Like on my other channel, my political channel that I don't mention as much, I did a video called, what was it, Cartoon Morals. And one of the things I talked about was the fact that, there was a lot of cartoons that come out back in the day when I was a kid, like He-Man, Transformers, that had, like really positive male role model figures that I'm sure a lot of kids looked up to on Saturday mornings. They looked up to He-Man and Optimus Prime and a few others out there. And they saw the example that they led, by always trying to do the right thing, like Batman or Superman, for example. And they admired that about these characters. So a fatherly figure doesn't necessarily have to be somebody real, but it is important if you do have that person in your life, whether it's your dad, your grandfather, an uncle, even your mom, like I mentioned, or it just could be somebody you absolutely love and admire, whether they're real or historical or fictional. The point is, if there is somebody in your life right now that is that fatherly figure that I speak of, be sure and tell them thanks. Thank them. Say, look, I know sometimes I can be a hard ass, I can be difficult, and but I am glad to have you in my life, and without you in my life, I would probably be a worser person, because of you and everyone else involved in raising me and taking care of me, teaching me right from wrong, disciplining me when I do bad things. In the long run, you're going to be a better person. So if you have a chance, and if you have somebody like that in your life, whether it's a dad, a grandfather, your mom, or maybe even several people that rise up to be a fatherly figure for you, even if it's a coach or a teacher you look up to, just say thanks for being there for me. Telling that to somebody who goes through great lengths to help you and try and take care of you and love you in their own way is something that would mean a great deal to them. So if you get a chance, and if you have somebody like that, and I don't know, you don't want to get all mushy and start crying, the tissue paper out and huggy, but just thank them. That's all you really have to do is say, what, thank you, Dad, or thank you, Grandpa, or thank you, Mom, or thank you, He-Man, for doing what you can to make me a better person.